In this video, I'm presenting the worst and most brutal killings and torture methods in the history of the cartel. Some of these were done for revenge, some because someone was seen as an enemy, and others were done for one reason only: to scare people and send a message to rival cartels and to civilians. There are so many cases like this that it would be impossible to cover all of them, so I handpicked some of the most ruthless and disturbing acts cartels have carried out. This goes from executions of innocent migrants all the way to cases involving children and entire families. And just so you know, the cases are only going to get worse as we go on. So with that said, let's get into it. Number 1. 2010 San Fernando Massacre. We're starting off strong with one of the most infamous cartel crimes ever recorded. In 2010, 72 undocumented migrants were found executed in San Fernando, Tamaulipas. At the time, this was reported as one of the largest mass killings connected to Mexico's drug war. The victims were migrants from Central and South America. Most of them were traveling by bus, trying to reach the United States in hopes of finding work or a better life. None of them were involved with cartels. They didn't know that the route they were taking was controlled by one of the most violent groups in Mexico at the time, Los Zetas. At some point during their journey, the buses were stopped by cartel members. The migrants were abducted and taken to a remote ranch. There, they were separated and executed. They were shot in the back of the head, one by one, and their bodies were piled together to be dumped in a mass grave. Out of the 72 people, only one survived. He was shot in the neck and face but didn't die. He pretended to be dead and waited until the cartel members left. After that, he escaped and managed to reach a nearby military checkpoint, where he told authorities what had happened. When investigators and soldiers arrived at the ranch, they were shocked by what they found. The number of bodies and the way they were executed made it clear this wasn't random violence. Investigators later believed the reason behind the massacre was that the migrants refused to work for Los Zetas and also couldn't pay ransom money for their release. In June of 2011, police arrested one of the men responsible, Edgar Huerta Montiel, also known as El Huache. During questioning, he tried to justify the killings by saying that if they hadn't been executed, rival cartels might have recruited them instead. In total, 58 men and 14 women were killed. The case gained international attention and was condemned by the Mexican president at the time, who publicly addressed the massacre and sent condolences to the victims' families. Number 2. Cadereyta, 2012. It's the early morning of May 12, 2012. Around 4 a.m., Mexican authorities received reports of bodies left on the side of a highway near Cadereyta, Jimenez, in the state of Nuevo León. When police arrived, they were met with one of the most disturbing scenes of the drug war. A total of 49 bodies were found dumped along the road. Every single one of them had been decapitated. Their heads, hands, and feet were cut off, making identification almost impossible. The bodies were left out in the open, clearly meant to be seen. Very quickly, officials stated that the killings were linked to Los Zetas. At the time, Nuevo León was one of the most contested areas between cartels, and public displays like this were commonly used to send messages. Some suspects later claimed that most of the victims were members of the Gulf Cartel, which was a rival group to Los Zetas. Out of the 49 victims, 43 were believed to be men and 6 women. However, because of the condition of the bodies, many families were never able to officially identify their loved ones. For a long time, the victims remained listed as unidentified. The massacre caused nationwide fear. Leaving mutilated bodies on a major roadway wasn't just about killing rivals. It was about terrorizing entire communities. Even though arrests were eventually made in connection to the crime, the full motive behind why those specific people were chosen was never fully confirmed. To this day, many families are still waiting for answers and justice. Monterrey Casino attack. 2011, on August 25th, the Casino Royale in Monterrey was operating like any other day. People were inside eating, talking, and playing slot machines. Employees were working their regular shifts. Nothing seemed out of the ordinary. That changed when people inside heard loud noises coming from outside the building. Shortly after, a strong smell of gasoline started filling the air. Within minutes, thick black smoke began spreading through the casino. Survivors later said the air became hot and heavy, making it hard to breathe, like trying to inhale through fabric. As panic broke out, people rushed toward the exits, only to realize something was very wrong. The doors had been locked. Gasoline had been poured at the entrances and then set on fire from the outside. Flames didn't spread far inside, but the smoke did. The building quickly became a trap. People tried breaking windows to get air. Others collapsed on the floor from smoke inhalation. When firefighters arrived, the fire itself was already dying down, but inside, dozens of people were unconscious or dead. In total, 52 civilians were killed. Many of them were women and elderly people. None of them were involved with cartel activity. Investigators later confirmed that the attack was carried out by cartel members after the casino refused to pay extortion money. The attack was meant as punishment, 6 men were arrested not long after. During interrogation, they claimed they didn't expect anyone to die, but investigators rejected that claim, pointing out that locking exits and using gasoline made the outcome obvious. All 6 were sentenced to long prison terms. The attack became one of the deadliest assaults on civilians during Mexico's drug war and showed how far cartels were willing to go when businesses refused to cooperate. Cartel Training Ranch for Teens, Jalisco, 2025. Exactly. This one happened in March 2025 in Jalisco, Mexico. A volunteer search group called Colectivos de Búsqueda was investigating missing people case, which is a huge problem in Mexico. There are more than 100,000 people reported missing, and government efforts to locate them are very limited. The group was tipped off by locals about an isolated ranch. When they arrived, what they saw was disturbing. Hundreds of shoes were scattered around, along with backpacks, clothes, and other personal items. Worst of all, there were burned and charred human remains near makeshift fire pits and incineration areas. Authorities were called immediately. It became clear this wasn't a single crime. It had been going on for months, maybe years. The ranch was used as a cartel training site for teens. Young people were lured there with fake job offers in construction or agriculture. Once they arrived, their phones and any way to contact family were taken. The teens were trapped and forced into physical and weapons training, learning paramilitary tactics. Anyone who refused, tried to escape, or didn't follow orders was beaten, tortured, or executed. This created an environment where fear kept everyone under control because the consequences were always visible. It's unclear exactly how many teens were taken there over time, but estimates range from dozens to hundreds. Only a few could be identified later through DNA tests. After the case became public, families searched through the recovered items, hoping to recognize belongings of their children. The case caused national outrage and highlighted how cartels can manipulate and exploit young people in extremely organized and brutal ways. Cartel organ harvesting and baby trafficking, Juárez, 2025. This case is still under investigation, so some details are not fully confirmed, but it's already shocking. It happened in Juárez, Mexico, and involved a woman named Martha Alicia Mendez Aguilar, also known as La Diabla. She was accused of running a cartel-linked operation involving pregnant women, newborns, and organ trafficking. According to investigators, Martha would approach poor pregnant women, offering housing, financial help, or medical assistance. Many women accepted because they had nowhere else to go. When it came time to deliver, the women were taken to fake clinics, which were actually clandestine locations with no proper medical care. Some mothers died during delivery. Afterward, the babies were removed and sold on the black market through illegal adoption networks. In addition, the mother's organs, and sometimes the newborn's organs, were sold and trafficked. Authorities learned about the operation through survivor accounts and witness statements. Martha was arrested in a coordinated operation and charged with human trafficking, homicide, and organized crime participation, with more charges possible as the investigation continues. Families of missing persons started coming forward, noticing similarities between their loved ones' disappearances and the timeline of this operation. The exact number of victims is still unknown, and many families are continuing to seek justice. Death of teenagers for no apparent reason, Zacatecas, 2023. This isn't just a single case, but a pattern that has been happening repeatedly. Cartels in Mexico often abduct teenagers, usually between 14 and 19 years old, for reasons that aren't always clear. Most of the time, these kids have nothing to do with the cartels. They're just in the wrong place at the wrong time, or they have contacts that the cartels consider suspicious. These abductions can happen anywhere. On roads while traveling with friends, at parties, or in city centers. Once the teens are taken, they're usually bound, sometimes blindfolded, and forced to walk long distances, often into remote forests or mountainous areas. The goal is to reach a location where the cartel can kill them without anyone discovering the bodies quickly. Once at the site, the teenagers are lined up and executed, usually by gunshot. In some cases, the executions are filmed, and the videos are sent to families or shared online as a warning. Survivors are extremely rare. One of the worst-known examples happened in Zacatecas in 2023. 7 teenagers were kidnapped together and forced to walk uphill through a mountainous area. Their hands were tied, and they were completely cut off from any help. Once the cartel members thought they were far enough from civilization, they lined the teenagers up and shot 6 of them. One teen survived by playing dead. He had been severely injured, but wasn't killed. After the cartel left, he managed to escape and eventually reached help. He was hospitalized, and his testimony helped authorities understand the pattern of these abductions and killings. The motives in these cases are not always clear. Sometimes the teens are mistaken for rival cartel members, sometimes they are targeted because of a family connection, and sometimes it's just about sending a message. Either way, these killings show the extreme lengths cartels will go to control territory and instill fear, even targeting children and teenagers who aren't involved in crime at all.